Hey, welcome back to Evil's Comics. I'm Evil Mike, and I have another review for you. This one is Vault Comics. This is Human Remains, issue number 2. We got writer is Peter Milligan, artist is Sally Cantirino, and then we got colorist is Dearblla Kelly, and letters is AndWorld. And it is brought to us, I don't know if I mentioned that, by Vault Comics, maybe. I wasn't a big fan of the first issue, but I'm not one of those people that quit at the first issue because, I mean, especially if it's going to be at least a 4 or 5 part series, there should be enough of a build-up, so I kind of give a series, a couple more issues into it. There were certain things I did like about the first issue, and there were certain things I didn't like. The story is, I mean, you have to have like a loose kind of a way of thinking to just kind of believe the story that's trying to be presented, because in this story it's about like aliens, monsters, or possibly a virus that sprouts up out of a portal or kind of a hole out of nowhere. I'm just going to go with portal, but it kind of spouts up around you anytime you show any kind of emotions in the real world. In the first issue, it kind of follows this married couple, and it does show you other examples of how people run outside and they're like, I can't take it, and all of a sudden it's just a mass of like these bone-looking tentacles and stuff that just show up and shred you to death instantly, kind of thing. So basically, the book's trying to push that you can't laugh outside, or you can't get scared, you can't show rage or fear, or these things will show up and kill you. And just my thinking of it is just, that's impossible. I mean, you could do it for a little bit, but the second you came in contact with somebody else, or many different things that maybe walking too close to a car, bam, this thing would show up and kill me. Okay, let's put that aside. Move that. I mean, let's bring our thinking down a little bit and kind of. But okay, let's say that even it's a possibility to do all that. Like, I mean, in my scenario, if this was to be a real scenario, I mean, you couldn't really go outside. The second you went outside and accidentally laughed or got scared or started thinking about something and you got nervous or something, I mean, you'd be automatically dead. So I couldn't imagine too many humans would still be around. The book does validate a lot of those points and stuff, but I mean, you just kind of have to, I kind of let that go, and I was, okay, so some people were able to survive, because like I mentioned, the first book follows a married couple at a wedding, and that's kind of the main ending of the first story, and they kind of do jump into that part of the wedding, but they give you other examples as the story starts out. It shows like a couple different people that are really excited that this is happening, like some religious fanatics that see it as, the Armageddon that they've been waiting on, kind of thing, talking about non-believers and stuff like that. They do go back into a virologist or virologist, that has been associated with the book, because they do believe that it could be a virus thing. So one of the side stories is following this virologist that has been studying and trying to figure out what this thing is, or even if they can figure it out, kind of thing, because for some reason the government does feel like it's leading more to the virus type of thing, even though this thing clearly looks like some kind of creature or monster. They do finally go back to the wedding of it's Bree, and I forget what her husband to be is, but of course at this wedding with cheers and happiness and everything, a big kind of portal shows up and it just starts massacring the wedding at the end of the first issue. So I was kind of like, I mean, I couldn't see anybody even living in that kind of scenario. I had holes and other holes besides the fact that, like, I don't kind of see it being a possibility that you could suppress your emotions so well you could just walk around without these things killing you. But I mean, like, okay, if it's just a portal that pops up, why can't you just hop back right before it kills you, or run away from the portal, something like that. But again, we're talking about art, imagination, stuff like that, so I'm pretty sure the writer would have encompassed some of those basic things. But we do get back to the wedding, and it looks like most of the wedding most of the people at the wedding get shredded up, but for some reason the groom and the the husband and wife don't get shredded, and it just, the thing kind of just disappears and stuff. Sometimes they show these tentacle things that, like, even after they disappear, it's just a mess of blood. But then sometimes it's like you still do see some of the bone kind of tentacles, like, left from the attack, kind of thing. They go into some of the other selling points that even though we would try to suppress these emotions, like for children, it would be like almost impossible. Like, there's one point in the book where a kid just, he can't remember why he's being told not to go outside. He remembers that it's bad or something like that. The monsters are stealing children that are going outside. But at the same time, he sees outside, and he goes outside, and the second he gets outside, it's like, yes, fun! And his parents have to quickly save him, and in the fear that he's about to be killed by the teleporting monster, motion killer kind of thing. They show other scenes where the book has led you to believe that it only happens outside, but as we get into like the middle part of the book, we do see other scenes where people are like, freaking out, like most disasters, but they are like, stockpiling on toilet paper and groceries and stuff like that, and some people get in a fight inside a supermarket, and one of those portals open up inside the supermarket. And they do show some other scenes where in apartments, these things, the portal opens up in some apartments. As the story is progressing, there's really a huge part of the story between the married couple, and it's probably the best part of the story because it's kind of plausible, but the husband, really caring for his wife, gets so scared, and they even develop a name for it, and it's like, I forget what it's called, but it's some kind of like life mania or something like that, because he is so worried that if he shows any kind of mass expression around his wife, that, like, they go into the scene where they're trying to make love and have sex, and it gets to a point where they're getting a little too loud, and he has to stop because he's so worried about being killed, and not really him, her, he cares so much about her. So it gets to this point where he even does this whole like neighborhood watch thing where he goes around his neighborhood spreading out posters and stuff like that, trying to keep people alert of the event that is going on, and at the same time he's doing it to keep distance away from his life because he's so worried about expressing emotions around her in fear that that they could be killed and stuff. Near the end of the book, we finally do see that he makes a decision to go live out in the woods away from her, stating that's the only thing that he could think of to do, was not only to get away from people, but to get away from her, to protect her, so he doesn't have that guilt that because of his emotions or expressions or something, it could cause him, the creatures to show up and get killed kind of thing. There is reference to an event that supposedly in Oregon, there is a part of Oregon that supposedly kind of has a bubble where none of these attacks have occurred, and they don't understand why, but that's kind of where the virologist part of the story is leading to. But that's kind of where this book leads off at. My honest opinion is the art got a lot better in this book compared to the first one. There's a lot more in this book compared to the first one. The first one was a lot of big panels of art and stuff like that. And in no regard is the art bad. It's just the first issue, the art didn't quite fit what I had in mind for the book. But this book, the art just, it came out a lot more. And I'm not saying I'm still 100% behind it, but the level of art didn't, the increase in the art that they gave us. There's some really cool panels and close-up on people. But the story, in my honest opinion, and I'm not one of these people to really do this, but somebody had kind of mentioned this, but it does feel like propaganda, and especially in this book, it kind of feels like they're pressing, like kind of pushing a lot of propaganda. There is a main story, that's the synopsis of what I gave you, the basics of what happened. But honestly, as I was reading it, and I don't normally do this, I don't see political, stuff behind the scenes, and I don't really see religious stuff behind the scenes. I don't go looking for it for one, but even when people really push it, most time it passes over me because I just don't follow those avenues, But this book, honestly, it completely felt like propaganda, like that this person is specifically trying to push this message, and I'm not going to get into that, but it's pretty obvious what he's trying to push. And I'm not saying I'm not against that or behind that or for it or anything like that, but I mean, for me, it's in bad taste because I was invested in, I kind of picked this story up because it was supposed to be a story and not some hidden message propaganda stuff. Again, these are my opinions, and this is no way. I mean, maybe I'm reading too far into it, but I did read it twice, and I tried reading it the second time, minusing all the kind of pushes of stuff that I mentioned, and it's still it's kind of obvious. But with all that being said, it is not a bad read. I'm not saying that, but it is not a great read. And honestly, the fact that the writer is really trying to do this to create this whole like fake story in front of like the real story that he wants to tell is kind of disappointing to me, especially because right now we're in this kind of like indie bubble, and I feel like the boundary that he's trying to push, it's been pushed. So it's kind of in my opinion, it's kind of in bad taste because it's already out there. I mean, I could talk about it for days. It's all over the news, and I mean, and the fact that he's trying to hide it behind a physical story. Now, I mean, who knows? Maybe in the later issues and stuff, like maybe the propaganda's there for a reason, and it comes to a play as the story gets completed. So that's why I mean, I'm still like I just don't know. But hey, this is my honest review on this book. These are my honest feelings of what I got from the book. And even if you care to do so, take my thoughts and go read the book yourself and see maybe if I'm just tripping. But hey, that's my review. Thanks for watching, stopping by. I will see y'all later. Bye.